Now, there are plenty of books and videos on how to pass an interview, but there are three insights, if you like, that I have never come across, and I thought I'll bring them to you. And this is part one, and in part two, I will go into more specific response that you can give, especially for project management jobs. Before I get into these principles, I wanted to ask you a question, a bit of a quiz, if you like. So what do these 5 questions have in common? So what they have in common is they are all BS. They don't serve any purpose. So the only purpose I can think of is for the human resource person, for the HR person to say that they have ticked the box. If there's something goes wrong with me, maybe later on they can say, oh, but I don't understand. I've done my due diligence. I've done all the checking. Because this is the first insight, is you are not being interviewed by this big fluffy entity. You are not being interviewed by the company over there. Let's say you want to work for Microsoft. Mr. Microsoft doesn't exist. He's not going to come there and ask you the questions. So you are being interviewed by someone who wants you to do a specific job, who wants you to meet your targets, and also who wants you to make their jobs easier. Nobody wants to hire someone who has a big vision of the company but is not going to be able to do the job that you ask him or her to do. No one. So what does that mean concretely? Concretely, that means that sometimes you have to leave aside your big speech saying that, yes, I want to bring the company forward and all that. You just have to make sure that you answer the question, what can you do for me specifically? So you have to meet the interviewer's needs. And this is why, where do you see yourself in 5 years, is a very tricky question, because someone who wants you to do something very specific, someone to hire you to do a job, they don't want to know really what you'll be doing in 5 years. They want to know what you'll be doing in the next few months for them, in the next couple of years for them, not what you want to do in several years. Now, HR might be interested in this for the reasons I mentioned before. They want to tick that box. But the person who asks you as a manager, he doesn't care. I've been in a situation when I interview people and they give me this big high-level speech about what they want to be like in 5 years. And I was thinking, well, these guys are not going to be able to focus on the job. They're already over there. So it's a tricky question, and it depends who asks you this question. That takes me to my second point, my second insight, if you like. My second insight is your response should be based on who is interviewing you. The tips usually for interviewing are, when a person asks you this, you need to respond that. When I ask you that, you need to respond this. But hang on, it depends who is asking you the question. In my view, there are 3 types of person that can interview you. I mean, sometimes there's different steps in the interview process, so you might come across some at different steps. The first type is the HR person. The HR person looks at the culture, the teamwork, your enthusiasm as well. They want to know if you will be compliant, but at the end of the day, they just want to tick their box. They just want to be compliant, and they want to know how they will be seen as letting someone like you being in a company. It's very rare that the HR person would tell, don't hire this person because he's such and such. So for instance, for what you want to be in 5 years, they would want you to have a very elaborate response. They would want you to show your ambition and the likes, even they are not really interested. What they want is they wanted to demonstrate that they've asked you the question and that you are a good fit for the company. Now, the second type of person interviewing, most important in my view, would be your direct manager, your team lead. Sometimes they bring in a colleague as well. For a project manager, it could be a program manager or a PMO manager, or even an executive sometimes when there's no project office. So they want to know if you will be causing them headaches. They want to know how easy you will make their job. They want to know if you will be high maintenance or not. So they want to know something very concrete. They want to know how you will impact their daily work life, if you like. Are you going to be quick? Are you going to be good at it? Are you going to be problem maker? Are you going to be knowledgeable? And all this. So they want a very specific, concrete response. They don't want all this BS. They want you to tell them, yes, I've done this job before. I'm very good at it, and I will make it work for you. So the third type of person that could interview you is a high-level executive. Sometimes it's in a later stage of being interviewed. It's either your manager's manager or someone higher up in a company. So this type of interviewer will not be directly impacted by your work. So they are more interested in your overall personality, if you like. They might ask you questions not very relevant about what you've done in the past, and they like it because they want to gauge you a little bit. They want to know what type of person you are. So it's a good idea to play along with him or her. It's a good idea to maybe flatter him or her at some stage. They need to like you. So this is the bottom line. They need to like you. And this is another principle, is every decision is emotional. You could have all the diplomas, all the credentials. If they don't like you, at the end of the day, they will not hire you. And this person specifically, he doesn't have a lot of other things to go through to decide if you are a good fit or not. So he will use this. Do I like this guy? Is it the type of guy that I could be at a water cooler with? So it's quite important because he's high level and he's got influence, but at the same time he's not really impacted by what you will be doing. So for this type of executive, be on your best behavior, show that you are positive, that you work hard, that you are likable, and that you like him. If he talks about him, just say, oh, that's great, that's fantastic. I'm looking forward to working with you, although from a distance. Depending on who interviews you, you would have to give a different response. So the last insight, if you like, is that interviewing is a two-way street. It's not only you receiving questions and providing responses. It's an interaction. You are interacting with the interviewer and they bombard you with questions, and after, sometimes it's not good to ask your own questions in the middle of their questions, but you can ask for clarification. You can ask for more specific detail about their question. So you have to demonstrate that you're looking for a specific job, and the job that you're applying for, this job for them, is that specific job. So in other words, you have to ask them questions when you already know the answer, that they can say yes as the answer, because this way they will know, oh, this guy is looking for a very specific job and it looks like we are the answer. You demonstrate at the same time that you just don't go for any job, that you want a specific job, that you are in high demand, that will bring your value up, and that you are very interested about what they have to offer because you've been looking for that. I'm amazed when I interview people and at the end of the interview they say they don't have any questions. So either they are not very interested, or more likely they would go for any jobs. So you have to be smart with this. You don't want to seem like someone who's very fussy and is going to be a high maintenance. Going back to Insight 2, for instance, where your response should be based on the interviewer. If it's for your team lead and your manager, you need to demonstrate that you will not be high maintenance, and this is why your questions for them need to reinforce that. So there is another question that I mentioned already in another one of my videos that is very important, is you ask them, is there anything that you've heard today that is a concern for you? You are preempting some concerns, and now it's your opportunity to answer that concern, because once you leave the interview, you cannot answer that concern anymore. So you have to ask them, do you have any issues with what I have to offer? Do you have any point of concern? You ask that and then you can answer it, because otherwise they will be meeting after and they say, oh, this guy was okay, but I'm not sure about this. They're not going to give you a call and say, oh, well, what about this? So you can ask them, and sometimes they would ask you, be genuine and say, yes, we're a little bit concerned about this, and then you can answer their concern. So this is it, 3 insights. I think if you bear that in mind in your next interview, I think that will increase your odds. In another video, in part 2, if you like, I will go into more specific questions that you can be asked and make some suggestions on how to answer them.